Good morning. I'm Ayin beis, volume 3. We finished the paragraph on page 1362. Yesterday, I gave an overview of the last, let's say, from page 1355 to here, to where we are now. So I'm not going to do that again. But just to keep things in context, keep in mind that all this began, the new section on page 1350, where after explaining for over 500 pages, 550 pages, from the bottom up through Tefillah, where we elevate the Kalim to receive and absorb more of the Oir, and all the way up to the Helam Ha'atzmi of Einoid, Havayu Elikim, and Einoid, that it began with Torah, which I'm Shacham Omayla Lamata, and began the discussion of the difference between Torah Oir, Ner Mitzvah, and the Shamas that are also called Ner, as mitzvahs are, and the Shamas that are also called Adam, and Torah is called Adam. And basically, so all this is a discussion, a continuing discussion of light and darkness. What we've gone deeper now is into the Oir HaMakabel and Oir Mashpia. That's the context. After explaining that Ner consists of 3 components: the wick, the fuel, and the fire, or the Oir, the light that it produces, which is the transformation of the animal soul of darkness into light, both by neshamas and mitzvahs. So it's clearly he's setting the stage that ultimately we're going to learn how Torah is Amshach of Oir that comes from a higher place. But to understand that, he began on page 1352, let's understand Oir Hariyah, the light of eyesight, of vision. And that was the flow, the transition into, the segue into the other levels of Oir Makabel, like vision, namely the moon and a bright stone, which are all 3 levels in Malchus, as we're going to learn, in Makabel. In contrast to the Mashpia, which is the sun, Zoh. So Lamaila, this is Zoh and Malchus. So Malchus on its own is a Nakuda, in its fundamental state, in Sheirish, in its root. It then develops the other spheres, all drawing from Zoh, but Malchus always remains a Makabel. We're talking about now not through Avodah, where Malchus will be elevated and reach all the way to its source. La'asad La'aveh, and Malchus will be Mashpia to Zoh, like the body will nurture the soul. But that's through a long Avodah. We're talking about the process of creation and the early stages of development. So Malchus is a Makabel. Both the Nakuda means it's a concealed state in Nakuda. It's only a point that only absorbs and is consumed with its source. Then even when it's built, it's still received, it's built through Zoh, through the spheres that come through Zoh into Malchus. So now Malchus is a full-bodied entity, but that full-bodied entity is drawing from Zoh, and even once Malchus is built up, it still is constantly dependent on the trigger, on the catalyst of Zoh, to be able to achieve its creative process of being mashpia now into biyah. So even its hashpah, its transmission, and its birth, giving birth to the souls of biyah, are all due to the seed that Zoh provides. Zoh, on the other hand, as we learned, like the male, is the creative power, the catalyst, and that's necessary. But Zoh on its own has the power, because once it receives, even though Zoh itself also emanates 6 facets and not all the 10 spheres, it needs moichin to come into it. But Zoh fundamentally is a mashpia. So that's why, number 1, it has 6 facets. It's not just a Nakuda. But even once it gets to 10, it now retains it. And Zoh has it now as a mashpia. It doesn't have to continue return back to Keser Chacham and Bina, to the Gimel Rishenish. It's now become a mashpia, and it remains so. And that's the distinction between Zoh and Malchus. So you can say in simple, and then he gave the example of male and female, that the male provides the seed that has all light, but without the female, you're not going to have a birthing. The woman, on the other hand, creates the birth, but she needs the catalyst, the seed, to trigger it. So in a way, you could say that the Malchus is the creative force, the power of birthing and creation, and Zah is the power of the catalyst. Like Oyer is the catalyst that's necessary to trigger the creative power of birthing in Malchus. So each has their role. Now, until after all the Avodah that we will do, and we will join Zah and Malchus together, and all the 7 levels that Malchus will elevate, all the way to levels even higher where Malchus will be higher than all this. But in the initial stages, this is Mashpia Makabel, classic Mashpia Makabel, and Keli, as they work together with each other. And they need each other, and each one has another strength. So Malchus' strength is essentially in its concealment that has this power to create, but it's still concealed, and it needs Zah to reveal it. So is like the rain, and Malchus is Zah is like the rain, and Malchus is the actual earth where it gets created. So you have essentially, to make a dira b'tachtenim, you need to have Malchus, because you need to have the creation of existence, which is Dafka Malchus, like he says in Geras Kedesh 20, that earth, the woman, the womb, the Levana, that's where existence and creation happens, tachtenim, because from Zah alone, it would be too intense to create existence. We need the tzimtzum, the concealment through Malchus, the Nakuda, and so on. On the other hand, Malchus needs Oyer, because without Oyer, you have a dark world. You have the night. And Oyer is necessary to reveal the divine within it. So in a sense, Zah is representing divine revelation. Malchus is representing the reality of existence where the divine revelation has to enter. But the Kavanah is Malchus. The Kavanah is not Zah. Zah is the Mashpia into Malchus. So that is the classic Makabel of Malchus and the Mashpia of Zah. But also Zah requires Hamshachah from Chachma Bina, Abba Ve'ima. But once Zah has it, Zah becomes fundamentally a Mashpia. Like we learned earlier, Mashpia is number 1, it's the power of revelation. Makabel is essentially a concealment. Number 2, Mashpia is Mashpia from its own power and its own resources. And the Makabel is always transmitting resources and the power of something greater than it. And when you have the combination of these two in our lives, you have the perfect match. And that's indeed why God created male and female, and why he created Mashpia and Makabel, why he created a sun and a moon, and why all of existence is really an interplay and a dance between these two levels of and Keli. Earlier we learned Rotze and Shuv has also connection to this, but he doesn't mention it here, so I don't want to bring it into the picture. But it's all similar idea of two forces, because again, remember, an interface always requires a representation of both sides of the coin, both elements. In this case, existence, but you also want to have the transcendence of a higher level of revelation. And that's the and Keli interplay that we're constantly in need of. And as I said, ultimately, as we're going to learn, and we have learned, through our Avodah, we actually help elevate and refine Malchus to the point that Malchus will slowly climb. It'll climb from a Makabel Biti, daughter, to Achesi, to being equal stature with Zah. Like we already learned that it becomes equal stature, but it's still receiving from Zah until it becomes Imi, like Bina, until it becomes even higher, all the way in the Hela Ma'atzmi. So Malchus then reveals to us something that's higher than Gilui altogether. But the interesting twist, and we always have to remember, to reach higher than Gilui, you have to go through Giluyim. There's an expression I read recently. A chassid said, once I thought I could we only need Atzmos. That's all we need. And then I realized, no, we need Seder Hishtalshalos too. You can't just go straight to the top without going through climbing the ladder. If you don't climb the ladder, you will not reach the top. And most importantly, you won't reach it in a way that's integrated in you. It could be a miracle. It can be God's power to elevate you there. But we're talking about, if you want to be part of the process, a true partner, it would be just like if your child came to you and said, why do I need to go to school? Why do I need to grow up? Why can't I just be like you? You're 40, 50, 60 years old. Why do I have to go through 40, 50 years to become like I'm? Why don't you just give me a gift? I have everything that you have. And the answer is, because if I give it to you as a gift, it won't be yours. And it really won't be. It'll never really be, you'll never own it and never be integrated, which is, of course, the kavanah is dira b'tachteinim. that we, on our terms, experience it. That God could elevate us to this place is there's no achievement in that. The purpose of creation is the partnership, and partnership requires these interfaces that we're describing now. I'm just placing this also in context of all of Ayin beis here. So that's where we are now, and that was the last thing we learned. I didn't have a chance to look up the Torah and the Tzemach Tzedek's Hagos. I will do that. Those are the last lines where we explained about that koyach that the power of birthing is a koyach within the nekeva in Malchus, but and yet it doesn't happen without the catalyst of or in this case Zah, that we've been discussing. Okay.
Could be more meduik. The rain is part of the tzameach. The seed is the koyach ha'ilode, not the rain.
Right, for sure. The rain is like Zah, is like the Shamshachas Mad, is like Tchura.
I think that the seed is Zah. The rain, I'm not sure the rain is Zah. Maybe rain is part of Malchus.
No, rain is not Malchus. Rain is like Zah. He did say earlier, he didn't say it's Zah, but he did say that if you look back on the bottom of page, where was it? Right here. Bottom of page 1352, he said, yeah, he does say, Hashpos Akshamim. He compares that to the Tchar. But it's a similar idea. It's true, it's correct. Technically speaking, more the seed would be the Mad, Mayan Tchurin, the seed, the Zera, and the place where that's like the womb, where it gives birth would be. But the rain, listen, at the end of the day, it's not just the seed of the man. He also has to be mashpiyat. He has to insert it to fertilize the egg. So, okay. So now we've also covered the first interpretation, going back to the Zohar, Sira or Malchus Lesla Mergamo Klum. So you may recall, he said on page 1357 that Zohar, there's two interpretations. Malchus has nothing of its own. It comes all from Zah. That's interpretation one. But interpretation two, Pirush HaBeis, he said, is that it comes Mekabelas Molmata Ma'avedus HaNeshamas HaMelochim. B'shnei HaPirushim Emes. And both these interpretations are correct. This is from a Maimer. I mentioned the Maimer a number of times. From Ve'inenu Me'ires of the Mittler Rebbe, which is not yet printed. So now he's going to go back now to interpretation number two, because till now we've been talking about how Malchus is formed. So how is Malchus emanate? A Nakuda, then it develops through Zah, like I explained, like a child growing, and the emotions begin to develop. And Malchus now is a full-blown entity that's able to mashpi and biyah, but it still remains less law megama klum because it's receiving from Zah. And like he said in the parentheses on page 1360, that the primary lesla megama klum is in the building and the transmission of Malchus. Now he's going to go to Pirush HaBeis. That's what we're going to learn now, the next paragraph. And what's the Pirush HaBeis is that Malchus is built up through the Avodah Lamata. Now you could say, is this a contradiction? Obviously not. Like you said, both interpretations are true. And we're now going to understand the second one, and then we're going to see how they work together. But keep in mind that what we discussed till now is the way God created it. Avodah did not come into play yet. It didn't say Malchus is built up through Avodah. It said Malchus is built up through Zah. So it begins like a Nakuda, but then, so to speak, the Zachar or Zah fertilizes it, and therefore then it can conceive and be mashpia into biyah. That's what we know so far. But we don't yet know what Avodah does. So now comes Omnam. So the new paragraph on page 1362, the pages can be found at ayinbeis.com. Omnam Pirush HaBeis Belesla Megamo Klum. However, now the second interpretation, and that goes back again, page 1357. He said clearly two interpretations. And what is that? It It has nothing of its own. And what's the second interpretation? It only has what it receives from below. Gam ze emes. And this interpretation is also true. It's not just the first interpretation is correct. This is also correct. Exactly the words he used back there, where he said, Shnei pirushim emes. Shnei pirushim emes. I'm looking at the paragraph, second paragraph on page 1357. That's the flow here. Makabelis mamata. So he's going to explain now what this means and how does it also, it's seemingly a contradiction. If it's coming from, if less lemagam klum, only what it receives from below, what do you mean? We just said what it receives from above. Either way, it's not from itself. That's for sure. Malchus doesn't receive it on its own. It's either coming from above or it's coming from below. That's what he's going to now address. Okay? So he says, that even though Malchus, we said earlier, Malchus creates and sustains existence. It energizes the Elamus, yes, with the power that it receives, but Malchus is the Melech, the king of Biyah. Malchus is mashpia into Biyah, like said, Mahave, Machaya, B'kol Mokum Lesla Mergam Moklum. Nevertheless, Malchus have nothing of its own. So now he's explaining that it doesn't have it on its own. It's only what it receives from halos man de lamata, from the mayim nukvim that comes from Avodah. Not to be confused with the mayim nukvim of nukva of Malchus that it receives from Zah. So now he's saying that even though Malchus is machayas or elements, so the question is, what does that mean? If Malchus is the source of life, so Malchus is the mashpia, not the makabel. And here suddenly we're saying that Malchus is makabel from the Avodah Lamata. And of course, we said already, Malchus is received from Zoh. So we have to obviously understand all of this. He's going to explain it. He's just setting the stage here. Tihini onodoyim, because now we see the midas ha-Malchus mevdelis mekol ha-midas. Bezeh, Malchus is distinguished and different from all the midas in the fact the Yisraelis HaMelucha v'Hisnasus, the arousal, the stimulation, the awakening of kingship and a sense of leadership, Hisnasus, exaltedness, hu ha'yedei azulas dafka. That's stimulated through another. I mean, he doesn't say yet the language, but it's like ein melech b'lo. He said it earlier. That is the Am, a king is not a king unless the people crown him. We're going to discuss this more in detail, but this is the same idea. So why is it different than other midas? Because the midas chesed v'gvura shai gam b'lei zulas. Take chesed and gvura, the midah of kindness and graciousness, loving kindness, or the midah of gvura, which can be restraint or discipline. So these midas are possible. Shaykh gam b'lei zulas. You could have these midas within you, even if you don't have another person. And he's going to explain now why. Or how. Reishis, first of all, b'tchilas hamshachos ha'nefesh. The first thing to say, Reishis, number one, that in their initial hamshacha from the nefesh, chesed and gvura we're talking about, harihem b'chilas hamshacha ma'nefesh, they are an extension from, they are transmitted from the person's spirit and soul. Remember, the nefesh has faculties. Just as the nefesh has chachma bina das, like he says right in the beginning of Tanya, chapter 3. So the nefesh is the spirit, is the soul, but the soul consists of faculties, just like Atzilus has spheres, chachma bina das, chesed gvur teferes, so too does the nefesh have keiches. So the keiches are nefesh. Here we're talking about the midas. Chesed and gvur are hamshacha from the nefesh. They're an extension from, or you could say they're drawing out, or their transmission. However you translate the word hamshacha, or the nefesh is extending itself through these faculties. So in their initial state, they come from the nefesh. Shemuchanim ve'emdim, they're ready and prepared. Liseirul isgalis, to be awakened and to be revealed. So in other words, even if there's no other human being on earth, a child is born. It has chesed and gvura in its nefesh. And it's ready to extend itself and prepared to express itself. Yet you can say that chesed needs another person to show kindness too. But you can't say you don't have kindness within you without the other. It's not like without another person, you don't have the power of chesed, just like your eyes. Even if you have no one to look at, your eyes have the power of vision. Even if you have no one to listen to, your ears hear things. To actualize it, you may need something to experience, but the faculties are intact on their own. We'll soon see how Malchus is different than that. So chesed and gvura are actual faculties, just like limbs and organs, parts of the soul, and they're ready to do their function. You don't need anything outside of what you have to do their function. It's true that it's only a concealed type of hamshacha. Why? Because if you don't have someone to show kindness to, it's like kindness in a potential state. So it is hamshacha nelemes levad. But you can't say it's not hamshacha. You can't say it doesn't exist. The nefesh has that aspect of it. As a matter of fact, you can even feel it. A person can feel kindness inside them, even if they're not actualizing it or acting on it or showing it to another person. So there is hamshacha, there is something that has happened, but it's hamlocha nelemes because it's not revealed to anyone except yourself. Or even from yourself, it may be concealed. But to say you don't have chesed and gvura, you can't say that. Let me read on, and then I'll stop if anybody wants to ask. Ukamoi, like he's going to give a practical example. A person who's fundamentally a good person, a kind person, and be'etzem. He's talking about not to someone that is born with a kind disposition, a kind personality. So all of this tamid b'tei v'chesed, he's always capable, even if he's not actually showing kindness. But he's always capable to awaken, tamid, with kindness and graciousness, or kindness and goodness, or goodness and kindness. Why is that the case? Because the midah of chesed is by him in a state of hamshacha teva. What he means by hamshacha teva means it's flowing properly from his nefesh. He has a chesed within him that's always there. Think of it like a faucet, a healthy faucet that can always give water, can always transmit water. That's what it has. It's more than a faucet, to be honest. A faucet is just a pipe, but think of it like it's like a mayon. It's a body of water that's always is ready to. And actually, water is a dugma for kindness, for chesed. That's ready to always be giving chesed. It's already hamshacha teva. Even if he's not actually doing it, it's there. Shari mitzat shleimus hanefesh. The Rebbe Rashab is really elaborating here, because due to shleimus hanefesh, the fact that the spirit is complete, the soul of a person, yesh bekol echad ve'echad midas hachesed. Just like when you say a healthy person has eyes and ears and a nose and a mouth and everything else and a heart and a brain, midas hachesed is part of a complete, healthy, wholesome soul. But more than that, he says, not just shleimus ba'nefesh, who gamkein b'chinas hamshacha ma'nefesh. It's not just some type of shleimus that you have the capacity. It's also an extension. The nefesh is already in a state of hamshacha. It's not completely abstract. It's just not begili, but it's there. There's a hamshacha there. In other words, there's the nefesh before there's hamshacha. That would be like a completely potential state. Here, there is a manifestation of a faculty called chesed. For example, when a child is conceived in the one cell, you can't say yet there's chesed, hamshach of chesed, because the development of the fetus is not yet turned into. You don't even have the limbs and organs. Everything is just in one cell. But when you talk about a full-bodied individual, it has all the faculties, and one of them is chesed. Umashazehu isha tev, and that which defines this person as being a good person that we just talked about in the example, so he's adding, everybody has the faculty of chesed, but doesn't mean everyone has 20/20 vision. It doesn't mean everyone has the same capacity of intelligence. Someone can be born with a better mind, another person with a lesser. So in the faculty, everyone has the faculty. But in a case where a person is actually a kind disposition, a personality that's kind, is because it's namshacha b'nefesh u'b'amshacha teva. And it flows smoothly, it flows easily. It's just like some people, for example, their mind grasps things naturally quickly. Their mind was just wired that way. Some people takes more effort. So the same thing here with chesed. You could have someone, everyone has chesed, but for some people, the amshacha is just flowing from the soul in a much easier or smoother and seamless way. The mishum zeh hu miseder b'chesed yesem mizulosei. That's why this fundamentally, naturally good person is going to be awakened. His chesed will be stimulated more than another person's. In other words, it's easier for him to do it. You'll see, you'll find that he's going to be naturally more kinder. But he's saying that that his chesed gets stimulated yesem more than another. V'chein be'isha gvura, same thing with the gvura. Someone that is more of a disciplined person, a more stern person, a more intense person, if you wish. So it's not just the faculty, but the amshacha from the soul, even without another person. He's just wired that way, that his amshacha of gvura, he's just by nature, by his very being, the amshacha is going to be more gvura than by another, because that's how the amshacha is coming from his soul. Let me stop here, just pause, and let's take any questions, because it seems like he's really elaborating more than usual, at least in volume 3, and he still didn't get back to Malchus. This is all an example of midas that does not need a zulas. He's making a case that you don't need another person to be a complete human being with all your faculties. Malchus is going to be very different, which is obviously also helping us understand how Malchus is different than Zoh in the Makabel element. But we'll get to that. So far he's basically state that chesed and gvura are faculties of the soul. They even have amshacha. Even if there's no one there, there's no other person, they're intact in that sense.
So
but
everyone is equal? If you're talking before the hamshacha, everyone is equal, the difference is only in the hamshacha?
Well, that's a good, listen, you could say both things. Like, for example, let's say one person is naturally born stronger than another. Is it the koyach strength or their muscles? Their kalim are better. We're not talking about through Avodah, through Yigiyah, through training. I would say it's probably both. Some people are born with a midas chesed. Their neshama is more chesedic, and therefore their chesed flows easier. I think in shleimus neshama lamaila, all the way you go to Atzilus, I'm sure there you'll find there's more equalizing. But there's no question that at some point, souls assume personality types, like there's souls of chesed and souls of gvura. But also within the faculties, he doesn't say enough here to really answer that question. But just from my own understanding of Chassidus, I would say there's a level of neshama like Yechida, where there maybe you could say everybody has the same equal power. Even there, I'm not sure. But there's definitely levels where the chesed is starting to emerge. So some people, the koyach chesed, even before the hamshach, is already stronger. And the hamshach, that's why the hamshach is hamshach teva, because it comes from a stronger place. Or you could say, as you're saying, perhaps that, or not you're saying, but you're asking, that perhaps even in the source, they're all equal. And it's only how it transmits from the source. I think both are possible.
Avraham and Yitzchak.
Yeah, that's for sure. They're for sure personality types. This is a neshama of chesed and neshama of gvura. But let's not talk about Avraham. So you're talking about two people who are they both have chesed in them. One has more chesed than the other. Did it come in the hamshacha stage, or did it come from the root stage in the neshama itself? I would say both, in my opinion. But It's possible that could be one or the other. I don't remember if Chassidus talks about it anywhere, to be honest. I'd have to look around, but it's a good question. Okay.
Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel.
Yeah, but that again, that's not what we're talking about. B'Sham Beis Hillel, because his neshama is rooted in Gvura. Here we're talking about two people, not talking about rooted in Gvura. I gave that example in truth myself, that there are neshamas like this, but we're talking about now a neshama that's not necessarily rooted in Gvura or Chesed, a regular neshama, like you and I. Lav dafka that a person who has more Chesed is rooted in Chesed. It could be he just has Amshach Teva, or maybe yes, maybe the neshama itself is rooted. I think you could say both ways. In other words, let's put it this way: you can have, let's say, a water main of water being running into your house. It's a very powerful water main, but the pipes in your house are very weak. So at the end of the day, you're going to get much less water than another person who may have a water main that's weaker, but the pipes are stronger. So you could ask the same question here. Is it the pipes from the nefesh that are different, or is it in the nefesh itself there's a difference? So I don't have anything conclusive from this here to look at other Maimorim if it talks about it. I know it talks about, for example, that a summa, a child born to blind parents,
You're freezing up. I don't know if you can hear us, but you're freezing up, at least on my end.
we'll see. Parents who give to a seeing child,
You're freezing us. You're freezing up, Rabbi Jacobson. I don't know if you can even hear us, but I can't hear you or see you. Can anybody else hear, Rabbi?
I can.
Anybody hear me?
Yeah,
I can't hear.
I don't see him.
I think he knows it. He just stopped the recording.
It was a nice presentation last night.
Yeah, it was impressive. It was a heck of a panel he was on. And you know what? He was the best one on there, even though he was up there with some really big hitters.
I agree. The guy who made it is an old family friend. His father is one of my best friends, Dr.
Which one? The MC?
Yeah, the MC.
He was a good guy. I thought he did a good job drawing people out.
Yeah, he's brilliant. So is his father.
What's his name?
Ruben,
That's his first name or his last name?
his last name.
I believe the recording is open.
We can't hear. You're muted, Rabbi Jacobson. You're muted.
I don't know what happened, but there must have been the internet again. You hear me now, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so the last thing I said was that there's not conclusive enough information to answer the question about you heard the example of the pipes I gave with the water pipes?
Not well.
Oh. So you could have one person, one home that has a very powerful water main running into the house, but the pipes in the house are weak. Another house where the water main is weak, but the pipes are very strong. So it could be both ways. And you could have one home where there's more water running in, even though the main pipe is a better one because is weaker because the pipe is stronger. So I don't think there's anything conclusive. I would say both scenarios are possible. What it does say in Chassidus is that two blind parents, even from birth, will give birth to a child that sees, because their blindness is not etzem nefesh. It's not in their nefesh. They have the power to see. It's either the keli or it's the oyer going into the keli, like the optic nerve. Or so the fact is, the nefesh for everyone has chesed and gvura. But you could still argue that for some people, the nefesh itself has a more powerful chesed. Or is it just the pipe? Or is it the pipes, the hamshacha from the nefesh, as you asked? So I don't think there's anything conclusive. I think both scenarios are possible. I would have to research it more. That's what I said before. Was this all clear? Everyone heard everything I said now?
Yes, very clear.
Okay.
Yeah, Roger.
Are there any other questions on this piece, or else I'll just continue? Okay. So now he's continuing to explain how these midas are not dependent on another. They're complete. The faculties are complete in the soul, and also the hamshacha. And that's why you have people who are by nature better, kinder people, because the hamshacha from the nefesh is more seamless or smoother or more or a smoother flow, so to speak. And this from this perspective, that makes something similar. This is where the midas are similar to the meichin, meaning that they're intact without another person. Even though midas are not meichin, but in this there's an aspect where there's something in common about them. What is it? Someone who's fundamentally and naturally a wise person, who gamke mashkekoyach hamaskil, is also that his koyach hamaskil, his power of intelligence, the power of the maskil, shu hamshacha nelemes. Remember, there's the nefesh. That's just the soul as it transcends all faculties. Think of it like a source of energy. Within the soul, there are faculties. The faculties then begin a process that first starts with the koyach hariyah, the koyach haseichel, the koyach hachesed. That's hamshacha from the nefesh, what's called hamshacha nelemes. It's still concealed because it's not yet revealed to anyone. It's like a superconscious state. The koyach hachachmo etzle b'hamshacha teva. What makes him a smart person is because by him, the koyach hamaskil, the pipe, so to speak, or the transmission from his nefesh of chachma, is transmitting in that faculty is a very, very refined faculty, and therefore it's hamshacha teva u'mishum zeh. It flows well. U'mishum zeh b'yecholta lischakim b'chol dovar chachma b'seichel. And that's what gives him the ability that allows him to conceive of every concept or idea in a good way. He has a good mind. So it's not, we're not just talking about he has a good nefesh. He has a nefesh that has the koyach hamaskil in it is intact. And this is not dependent on anyone. It's the way he's created. Umakol mokim, and nevertheless, imlo yisasik b'muskolis, even though he has a better, his wiring is superior to another wiring. If he's not going to be misasik, if he's not going to involve himself, engross himself, really get himself, work hard. He says misasik. Misasik means to work at it. He's going to struggle. He's going to exert himself. In muskolis, in intelligence, lo yeh chacham b'peil. He won't be in actuality a wise person. He'll have the capacity to be wise. It's like someone who has the ability, but he's not using his abilities. It's like the Alter Rebbe told that chassid. He said, you should learn. You'll be such a great Gaon. He said, I'm already a Gaon. So he said, no, the Alter Rebbe said, just like a thief is not someone who could steal, but someone who steals, a Gaon, a genius, a scholar, a great genius, a scholar, is not someone who could study, but someone who studies. So though the faculties are intact, it still needs to actually do it. So the same thing is with midas like moichin. That there's hamshacha lemes mitzad nefesh. In other words, the person himself, without another person, has this power of chesed, like it is with moichin. He's not trying to say that midas are like moichin. He's saying in this aspect, midas have something similar to moichin, that they're self-contained faculties. Now he's going to make the distinction. So both of them have the capacity. The difference is when it comes to moichin, to chachma, b'moichin, he can actually actualize it and conceive b'poel. He can be a person who's studying and learning and using his mind. B'lei azulas, he doesn't need anyone else. Well, b'mides, you only have the actual faculty has been nimshach hamshach and elemes. Ef shalias hashpa b'poel. But actually, what's the word I want to see? Transmitting chesed, actually communicating chesed, kindness, b'poel, is not possible without another. So if you're sitting at a table, you could study and learn and use your mind and conceive. But you can't show kindness if there's no one to show kindness to. Even though the midah is completely there. In other words, it's like you have the machine is there, the faculties are there. So that in that sense, it's like moichin. What's different is that the b'poel of moichin can be done even without anyone else. But you can't show kindness if there's no one to give kindness to. You can't bestow kindness. That was the word I wanted. You can't bestow kindness without a recipient, without another. Avlam shochem mitzad nefesh, he b'midas kamei b'moichin. But mitzad nefesh, the amshacha, just like you have the faculty of vision, the faculty of hearing, you have the faculty of the mind, chachma, bina, das, and you have the faculty of midas, chesed, and gvura. That's intact. It's only on the b'poel, on the actual level, that there's a difference. In Malchus, we're going to learn that even the very faculty needs another. But we'll see what that means, because what does that mean? Is there no Malchus within us inherently? But I'm going to stop here because of my own time pressures here. This is Reishis. This is the first point, that a midah can be without a zulas in the faculty and in the hamshacha of the faculty. But in the Vajres, the next section, he's going to say there's more to say about this topic as well. But I'm going to stop here. Does anybody want to ask anything quickly? Because I do have to run to something that is an urgent matter here to attend to.
Are you doing any for Bring It tonight for Chayel?
I am, and there is a link actually, but it's for women officially. But that doesn't mean you can't. Listen, with Zoom, there's no mechitzas necessary, so anybody can join, I'm assuming. I'll get the link and I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Which line? I lost us. Which line are we on now? I was trying to think. Listen.
Four lines from the bottom of page 1362 is where I'm going to stop.
4 lines?
4 lines from the bottom of the page.
Thank you.
So I'm going to stop here, the bottom of the page.